All right, friends, how you guys doing? Our bearded friend here actually had his second conversation with my brother. I feel like it went pretty well. I got to listen to it. I think he posted it on his page as well, so you guys can go check it out at Heavyweights Light Feels, or you can check it out on our page at Brothers Blue. I actually was blessed by the YouTube algorithm this morning because I woke up and was just gonna start off my day by recording my Seahawks video that I'd been wanting to record. And right when I opened up my YouTube, this actual video was in my suggestions. And I was like, Snowflake, sound of your own voice. This sounds eerily similar to the conversation that I had. So basically, what we're going to look at here is this video. And the person he's talking about interacting with is me. So let's get started.
Good. Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. I do like the sound of my own voice. As mentioned by someone who thought it would be helpful to extending the conversation to call me a snowflake because I had called them out on being rude and condescending.
So just the first thing real quick, this communication was over Facebook Messenger, so it was typed out, and I sent the snowflake emoji, and he was like, what do you mean by that? And I was like, oh, I'm sorry, I was calling you a snowflake. And that's where the conversation devolved from. It was me sending the snowflake emoji.
And stating that's not really a foundation from which we can have civil conversation, civil dialogue, discourse, dialectic, the pursuit of truth. It seems that times are crazy, as I've said before, and you all hopefully agree with to some extent. The ironic thing about this individual calling me a snowflake was the fact that they're a vote blue no matter who individual, and I have not withheld any of my beliefs that our government.
So what he's saying is that because I'm a Democrat, it's ironic that I would call him a snowflake. So if you obviously get what the inference is there is that Democrats are snowflakes, and since I'm a Democrat, I'm a snowflake, and it's ironic that I would call him a snowflake.
Government is corrupt to the core, which is why I'm not going to vote blue no matter who. I've actually never voted Democrat.
So voting in general, I'm pretty sure in his video with my brother, and I'll have to look at it again, but I need to figure out or nail down whether or not this guy actually votes. I'm pretty sure he said that he doesn't vote or he didn't vote in the most previous election, 2020. And then not only that, I did tell him that I'm a vote blue no matter who guy, and that's pretty much true. But that also depends on where you live. So like right now I live in Pennsylvania, and I do vote blue no matter who all the way down the ticket, because I feel like my votes matter both on the local, state, and federal level. As far as your vote counting on the federal level, so your presidential election specifically, it can easily be argued that your vote doesn't matter if you live in the state of Washington, California, Oregon, Texas on the other side, Arkansas, Mississippi. But what I really support everyone doing is voting locally and in your state elections, because your voice is actually heard.
Probably shouldn't be admitting that, but I'm a libertarian. I found.
And libertarianism is like this fatty kind of thing, in my opinion. I actually voted for Gary Johnson in 2016. That's what I was also going to say about the vote blue no matter who. Is I voted for Gary Johnson in 2016 because I lived in Colorado and I didn't think my presidential vote mattered. I thought giving a third party candidate a vote was kind of a cool thing to do, a kind of a cool way to say, fu to that corrupt system that Andrew's talking about. But yeah, libertarianism isn't a form of government. There are no libertarian countries. It's an ideology, and it has some good ideas, and some are not as good.
Found libertarianism at a young age. The virtue of freedom. Now, virtue. I'll need to do a whole nother video on virtues. But the virtue of freedom really means a lot to me. And that has shaped a lot of my views and values. Can you value anything if you're not free? Well, yeah, you can. Your environment of your mind will shape the environment of your world around. So while I talk about all of these things of benevolently, non-violently overthrowing the government, like that salon owner in Texas who engaged in civil disobedience, Martin Luther King would have been so proud. So proud.
I don't really know what he's going off on this tangent about freedom and civil disobedience. But I do like that he brought up Martin Luther King, because my favorite thing to bring up to people about Martin Luther King right now is when they say, oh, well, Martin Luther King wouldn't have supported the Black Lives Matters protests because he didn't support violence as a means of protesting. And this is a quote from him right here, as you guys can see. A riot is the language of the unheard. Our nation's summers of riots are caused by our nation's winters of delay. So Martin Luther King was definitely pretty much anti-violence in most cases, but he definitely wasn't an anti or a disadvocate for using violence in order to get the protest message across.
That's what we need to do. Get back to our roots of civil disobedience. But we can't, because we are so polarized. We are so disconnected from our communities, from each other. Even having civil conversation is impossible nowadays. The crazier things get, the more I'm inclined to want to support causes that truly fight for freedom. And I want to have conversations around
Cody, can you be quiet?
And what is right. So I guess I am a snowflake for not wanting to talk to people who engage in ad hominem attacks instead of...
Okay. So this is where, on the premise, I agree with our friend here in that, and it was kind of where he started the video out before he kind of got off on a little bit of tangenty stuff, is direct ad hominem attacks are not a productive way to build a base for intellectual or even common communication. But what I'll say is it's really interesting how I used this. And not only that, I'm very specific in that I know that this happened only the one time between this person and myself, because prior to leaving Facebook, which I've been off of Facebook for about 4 months now, but prior to leaving Facebook, I was very adamant about not using ad hominem because I think it is the lowest form of logical fallacy. It does not provide for productive conversation. With that being said, I do admit that I did call him a snowflake, so that's direct ad hominem. But more recently, in his conversation with my brother, he yelled at him, calling him dense, an idiot, and saying that he was asking stupid questions. Now, his question was essentially, what freedoms have you been denied? They talked a lot about different freedoms and stuff like that. And Andrew seemed to not have an answer for what freedoms he was being denied other than unabridged drug use, which my brother and him very much see eye to eye on. They're both very much strong advocates for full decriminalization or legalization of all substances. So it was interesting to see that kind of devolve in a way that they were agreeing on this one thing. And then Kyle said, well, what other freedoms can you think of that are limited for you? And instead of trying to think through it productively, Andrew kind of melted down, got angry, and engaged in direct ad hominem. So we all can do better at times, and that's probably maybe what he's hoping for that situation. But it was pretty interesting to see.
Of intellectually constructed arguments.
Also, one real quick thing that I'll say about intellectualism is he seems to be into like the idea of intellectualism, but I'm curious if he knows where the foundations in America lie for anti-intellectualism. And I'll give you guys a hint. It's not with left-leaning liberal Democrats who are talking about anti-intellectualism. It is the people on the other side of the aisle.
Saying that's a right-wing news source is not a meritful argument.
Okay, before we move on, we'll just show you guys this one real quick. I wanted to show you this tab. So if you go to my Google first page, you'll see CNN is right here, Town Hall's right here. We know what CNN is. I get my kind of liberal viewpoint from there. Town Hall is pretty hard right. I think it's even more right-leaning than Breitbart. Town Hall will feature articles from the likes of Dennis Prager, Ben Shapiro, Ann Coulter, Kurt Schlichter, and others who have pretty fringe ideas. And then the other thing I'll say about sources is my main thing you see right here is RCP, Real Clear Politics. I use this on a daily basis, and you'll notice this has articles from different authors from dozens of sources. So like this is even a personal statement to America from Michael Flynn. So that's the one guy who actually got arrested in the Russian 2016 voter interference or whatever, election interference. So this is really a cool site in order to try to broaden your horizons and to see a lot of different viewpoints, because you'll get very far left and very far right. And some of it falls in the middle, but that's pretty rare as we know nowadays.
So what? Can I say that's a left-wing news source?
Absolutely. When anyone posts anything, you should be able to question the source. That shouldn't be that's kind of ad hominem. I don't know if everyone knows that there are two sides to what ad hominem logical fallacy actually is, but that falls into there as well.
Post something from a left-wing news source? Are there any trustworthy news sources anymore anyways? Let's see. I'm pro-gun, pro-some choice, pro the legalization of drugs.
Okay, we'll stop it right there because the last one I want to get into. So pro-gun, pro-some choice, and a pro-decriminalization or legalization of drugs. So you, if you live in the state of Washington, then you should have a gun. You should be able to get an abortion, and you should be able to use marijuana recreationally. So again, I also live in a state where I am happy that the constituency has over time voted for these things. So I'm able to, have access to my wife is able to have access to women's reproductive services. Um, Medical cannabis is legal in Pennsylvania. I think recreational is getting worked on, and then gun as well. I mean, I've always owned a gun. I've never not owned a gun since I was an adult. So I kind of don't really understand the whole Democrats hate guns thing. Just because I believe in gun regulation doesn't mean I don't like guns.
Pro small government.
Okay, this is my favorite one and my least favorite one because you can, as an individual, say you're pro small government and that's fine and everything. And that's actually like a libertarian idea pushed by the conservatives or the right or the Republicans, whatever you want to call them. And the reason I say it's a libertarian idea pushed by them is because they're not actually for small government. The government has expanded whether Republicans or Democrats are in charge. The difference is Republicans tell you that they're about small government, and then once they get in office, they expand the government. So there has never really been this dismantling of big government by the Republicans or the conservatives because big government continues to grow regardless of who's in power. So that's just it's something that if you choose to believe that Republicans are the party of small government, then that's choosing to believe that. There is no merit in your belief.
I don't know what I am anymore. But what I do know is that the people are more divided than ever, and we need to find a way to come together. We really do. I know that's all I say, but shit.
No, that's the dead horse that I'll beat with you, my friend, is that we are extremely polarized and divided. And something that you and I briefly broached the subject of is coming together to think about solutions, because that's what needs to happen. It seems like there's just a lot of, if it's not infighting within your own party, then you're just fighting the other party. And so just everyone's fighting everyone over everything.
I made the mistake of sharing that pandemic YouTube video that has been interestingly censored.
So he says interestingly censored, and I would say appropriately censored. Anyone who's seen that video or knows the story of it, 4 or 6 months later, hindsight's really been not kind to that video, especially with what's going on with our global pandemic. So,
they have gone significantly out of their way. The powers that be.
Again, the powers that be. I remember being on Facebook and them censoring the video. And then it was censored on YouTube, I'm sure, and Twitter as well. And I'll come back to the same argument is these companies have the right to regulate any and all content on their platforms, and they can do so how they see fit until legislation is put in telling them to do otherwise.
I'm almost a free speech absolutist. One of my favorite expressions is avoid absolutes. The world is gray. So I get it.
And you can be a free speech absolutist as an individual, and that's fine. But the fact of the matter is there's Supreme Court precedents. Basically, the idea is you can't yell fire in a crowded movie theater when there's no fire. So that's an abridgment to free speech. So that's just kind of fact.
But the ferocity in which they attacked that video and me and her. Nobody asked me why I liked the video. What about it interested me? It was just straight character assassination.
And so, no, this was not. I don't know how he could even imply that that me or people were involved in assassinating at least his character, because that's not something I did. When we were talking about this, I was attacking the video with multiple sources from different viewpoints, and that's it. So
But that's all that the left can do now. They are being exposed, and they don't know what to do. So they're attacking you. If you do.
So again, I was attacking the argument, not attacking him. And even though he like has this deep voice and kind of this sometimes aggressiveness to him, there I just pick up a victim mentality off of this. Is what I'm picking up. Is like, he's being stifled. He's the true victim in all of this.
Do not conform. Don't let them coerce you into conformity. Be open-minded. Think for yourself. Talk to your remaining friends and family. Seek truth at a high.
So I agree with him, especially on that sentiment right there. And that's why every Sunday I have a group video chat essentially with myself. So I live in Pennsylvania. My brother lives in Arizona. My mom lives in Kosovo. My uncle lives in California. My aunt lives in Indiana. I have another aunt who joins, and she lives in Maryland. And obviously me and my brother are the young liberals. My mom's a liberal as well, but my aunt from Indiana, she is a Trump supporter, hardcore conservative. And then my uncle from California, he's a funny guy, kind of a tough read because he's kind of like a classic California Republican, but he doesn't support Trump. And that's a whole nother conversation to be had. But I totally agree with what he's saying, in that we need to continue to have the conversations with all of our family and friends and stuff like that.
Higher level than just your own perception, and be open to the idea that someone else's perception can be their truth, and that if you can come together, you might be able to find a cohesive consensus around a new truth. That's how we get to intellectual evolution. Is you bring your truth, I bring my truth. We compare perceptions and the reasons we believe the things that we believe, and we talk about it. We share sources. We extend olive branches. We listen. We grant grace and latitude in conversations. People are afraid to talk now. And, some people say cancel culture isn't real, or that these people deserve.
So a couple of things is I agree that I could be a little bit more graceful in my communications sometimes. So I'll give him that. I like what he said there about having more grace. And then, but I'll come back is he said people are afraid to talk, and I'm not afraid to talk with anyone. I'd be happy to have a conversation with anyone about anything. So that's just where I sit on that, though. And cancel culture isn't real. The pandemic video, you can still find that if you look for it. And then not only that, but anyone who's canceled. So like Alex Jones, for example, yeah, he's not on YouTube anymore, but he still has a website that probably gets millions of people in traffic every day. So how canceled is he really?
What they get, but an eye for an eye will leave the world blind. And I firmly believe that the more hate and anger you encounter, the more you need to combat it with love and compassion. Call me a hippie, call me a snowflake, whatever. Thank you for listening. This is just a mic test video. Oh yeah, I got a new mic. Because I was so enraged at being called a snowflake by a liberal vote blue no matter who that I...
Okay, so a couple things real quick before we end. So he was so inspired by me that he went out to upgrade his recording equipment. So I'm really happy that I could help your inspiration in trying to get your voice and your opinion heard. So good job, to both of us. And then he does finish his point again with,
I was like, I'm going to the next level. I'm going to get a little more serious.
yeah.
Thank you.
So basically, he ended it with saying how ironic it was that a vote blue, no matter who person called him a snowflake. So again, he is directly implying that Democrats are snowflakes. And that's a totally unbiased opinion, in case you guys didn't notice. But yeah, and because I'm a Democrat, I'm a snowflake, and I called him one. Don't you see the irony? If you don't, then I understand that as well. I am going to go through the next video of him and my brother having a conversation in the hope that maybe one day I will get in on this. But hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you have anything to say it in the comments.